Set. We're live.
We are live. Welcome to episode 16 of the EU Legends Wayback Machine. Today we're covering the Marvel Comics issues 31 through 33. Alex will not be hosting today. He's having some internet issues. So with me today I have Brennan, I have Archive Panic, and I have Robert. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Doing well.
Yes.
What do you guys think of these issues? It seems like we were just on Tatooine with Tatooine Sojourn with the LA Times comics, but seems like we're back. Return to Tatooine. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I like how many times they returned to Tatooine for the first time ever. I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's fun. This is I was saying this before the show. This is the stretch of issues that I think of when I think of the Marvel Comics. I don't know why, but this is it. Well, at least the New Hope stuff.
We got some viewers here. We got your cousin Yanis says hi. We have Star Wars EU teen Lance. Hello.
I think you mean Star Wars 3D. Yeah, it happened in Star Wars 3D as well.
Yes.
From Blackthorn, which we haven't covered yet, have we? That'll be
but I think we should probably soon.
I think it's 87 or 88. It's late in the 80s.
It's actually a lot later. Yeah. We have a bunch of West End Game stuff between then.
It is between publishers. It's between Dark Horse and Marvel because it's by whoever did those comics.
Blackthorn Publishing.
Blackthorn.
That's right.
Yeah, and apologies in advance. I can't pull up your comments because I'm technically not the host. I'll just call them out as I see them, but don't be offended if I miss your comment. We're just trying to make do with what we have today.
It's all Scott's fault if your comment isn't read.
Yeah. Send your complaints to my channel, not to Alex's.
Brennan, if you don't know offhand, don't worry about it. But when is the Long Hunt?
Which Long Hunt?
That would be the first annual.
Okay, the Long Hunt was 19 because I think there's a West End Games source book also called that, or an adventure. So the Long Hunt, the annual is, I believe, 80 for the release date. I think it's 1980. And I think we'll cover that in an individual episode because it's the double-sized issue as well. Yeah, and there were 3 of those. Is that correct?
Yes. There is that is in the omnibus. That is placed before these. I don't know if that was for reading purposes or for like that's when it was published, but
when I read the Marvel comics, I read them as presented in the hardcover omnibuses. So yeah, I think it's a different reading experience for sure. And I do know they're organized differently than the a long time ago Dark Horse collections as well. Organized
very Scooby-Doo looking trade paperbacks.
Very colorful boys.
I like those.
Yeah.
So we begin this issue, which I definitely like to do back on the cover. I just wanted to point that out really quickly. But this opening sort of prologue here we have to issue 31. There's a Star Destroyer and a House of Tag mining ship. And there's a little scene here. And I think Archie Goodwin had actually meant this to be General Tag from the A New Hope film. But it's Ulrich Tag, who we find out in the expanded universe is actually another member of the Tag family, a brother, but he is an Imperial officer. He's talking with Orman Tag here about some of their plans. They seem to know that the rebel that did the impossible, referring to him destroying the Death Star, is Luke Skywalker. As we saw from previous issues, Vader doesn't have that information yet, so he doesn't know that Luke Skywalker was actually the pilot that destroyed the Death Star. Valence does, and the Tag family does, apparently. But the Tag family are trying to one-up Vader and get, I guess, prestige and to look better in front of the Emperor, right? They're trying to one-up Darth Vader, similar to how Prince Shizor does in Shadows of the Empire later on.
That was what it made me think of, yes.
Yeah, very, very similar. So I like how Orman Tag, he looks blue in one of those panels. That's very Grand Admiral Thrawn-like there.
I also quite like this opening page here.
Mm-hmm.
That is a nice
Yeah.
page.
Definitely, it's very
Good
nice
use
art.
of white space. Look at that.
I double checked on the annual, and it came out December 4th, 1979. So right at the end. That's probably why I thought it was an 80. This issue here that we're covering right now is from October. So I think they go October, November, December, and then the annual came out after it. So it is interesting if they put the annual before this stretch of issues when it came out a couple
I
months
think
later.
so. I'd have to I'd have to double check. I'd have to take
Okay.
down the thing, but I think so. I'd have to look. So yeah,
That's interesting.
these are the last stretch. This is the last stretch of issues in the 70s.
Yeah,
That's
That
fun.
is true.
We're running out. We're running out of 70s material very quickly.
it's so interesting how when we think of this series, we think of Marvel 77, but like half of it's in the 80s, more than half of it, 80 to 83. I think 83 is when it ended, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And if you
86, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah,
86.
86.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
if you'll
Of
just
course,
scroll
it was
back,
extended past Return of the Jedi.
if you'll just scroll back one page there, a little bit further up there, right there, Robert. So it seems like they know the Empire will strike back. Is that an homage to the title of the second film? Possibly.
At this point, it
Possibly.
has to be, right? Because it's
Yeah, they're-
79.
Yeah, they've definitely done some filming by now, so they probably know the title, and that could be a leak there. I wonder if people noticed that when they first read this issue. But
Does anyone know when Empire was announced? Like, it's totally different from how things are done now. So I'm assuming it was announced like 3 months before it came out or whatever. But does anyone know offhand?
I don't. I feel like I've seen scripts though that show
What
the
month
title.
of 80 did Empire Strikes Back come out?
I think it was
I'm
May.
sure.
Yeah,
It was
it would
May?
have
Yeah.
been May.
That's what I was thinking. So that's what, 7 months from November of 79?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just reading some comments here. We have Lucas Gearson. Greetings, everyone. And then we have some Okie dude. And thanks for tuning in. So after this prologue, we have Tatooine. So the Tag family is referring to some plans that they have on Tatooine. We find out that it's a ice beam ray that they, for some reason, have to use on Tatooine. Seems very bizarre there, but
Seems
we see-
counterintuitive, right?
Well, as we learn later, there are actually a number of planets that were suitable for their testing, and Baron Tag, he went, this one here, Luke Skywalker is from this planet, so I'm going to use that place because I'm just that petty.
right. They want to get back at Luke Skywalker, so it's a personal vendetta, but they take it upon themselves to think that Luke will automatically show up back on Tatooine at some point. Now, I think this takes place chronologically before the Tatooine sojourn that we covered in LA Comics, because it says
I
at the
would
very
assume
top
so as
here, the Warrior's mission brought him back to Tatooine, returned to Tatooine. So I think this is the first time they were back. But very similar situation. They have a ship there, and Luke's mission that he was assigned by the rebellion was to recruit smugglers so that they could run blockades for the rebellion, because they're sort of under blockade where they are on Yavin 4, and I think they need supplies in and out of the rebel base. So he needs to make his way to Mos Eisley, but he's there looking through his electro binoculars and sees some stormtroopers arriving on Wayback.
I would like to just throw out that last page. I would say was pretty solid. I know we give Carmine Infantino a lot of crap, but I would say that's nice. It's very clean, very simple.
As long as she's not drawing Chewbacca, and it's fine.
Yeah,
Chewbacca is a real struggle for almost all these artists. I don't know why
really
Chewbacca is so hard for specifically the Marvel guys. The newspaper guys get him immediately, but the Marvel guys, they never seem to get him.
I think I've said this on this show before, but he sometimes looks like Gimli the dwarf.
He does a little
For
bit.
some
He
reason.
does a little bit. I love Gimli. I love Chewbacca. No, not a fan of them together.
Not the unholy combination.
Ship them. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
So we have the Wayback Patrol is scanning for life forms. I guess they're one of them makes reference to why don't we just send out a TIE fighter to do the scanning, but C-3PO and R2 they put some sort of camouflage tent over top that makes their ship undetectable. So it just looks like to the stormtroopers there's a moisture farmer with a land speeder there. Nothing out of the ordinary. So they don't really have reason to come up to them. But
like
sorry,
this,
Robert.
I like this exchange here. Don't complain. We're the ones who are walking. Tomorrow I get the due back.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I got
I like that.
chuckle out of that.
But also, Tatooine sojourn. Obviously, we don't see in this story. We don't see the Luke being asked to come here, but Tatooine sojourn has that moment towards the beginning of the story where he's asked to go to Tatooine and he goes, "No, I don't want to go back there." That
is a good point. I forgot about that. So maybe that is chronologically before this story, because he doesn't have any problem, at least as far as we know, going back here this time.
I think he does have a problem with, being back here after what happened to his aunt and uncle. But
I think it's.
I think by this,
in my notes, he says.
I think by this
he's
point,
still upset over that.
Right.
He's still upset, and he does visit his old homestead here, as we'll see shortly on the next page. Which there's hardly anything left there.
I think you could probably make a strong argument either direction. If you really wanted this to go, in a certain way, you could probably make an argument.
I think it's.
I always assume that it's very hard to discern. I always assume the newspaper one went first. I think just because of publication wise, maybe is why I assume that. But I don't think there's something that's concrete one way or the other. But that was an interesting point, Robert.
Yeah, that was a point I forgot about too. So maybe he is right. Maybe the newspaper strips do go first. But Luke goes back go ahead.
I like that sort of similarity between him and Anakin, even if Luke gets over it and Anakin doesn't.
Actually,
good point.
We managed to find the exact thing I wrote down. Aunt Beru, Uncle Owen. As much as I was complaining about being stuck here, as much as I glory in some of the things I've done, I still miss you both very much. That is very nice, and we don't get a lot of Luke mourning Beru and Owen. We get a little bit every now and again, but not.
We
not
don't
as much
really
as
get it in the films, do we?
No, we don't. We get almost none. We get that shot where he's looking, and then gone. He's like, "All right."
If my aunt and uncle just got wasted by a bunch of people with blaster rifles, I think it would be more than just a long look over the dunes.
If the people who raised me since I was a baby got fried alive, got burned into like crispy bites, I would be horrified. There would be so much more than a look. But
it would be years of therapy.
The only real argument I can make for that, and this isn't a great argument, is that life is cheap on Tatooine.
I guess that's fair.
That could be a pretty good point. Just Tuscans all the time just take you out.
That is what happened to me.
Luke's thoughts are a little nuanced, though. He says, Aunt Beru, Uncle Owen, as much as I complained about being stuck here, because he wanted to leave Tatooine for sure, and as much as
probably to raise his life expectancy.
Sure, but going and fighting for the rebellion doesn't exactly raise your life expectancy either.
You're right.
But he's been doing well so far. I mean, he destroyed the Death Star, was one of the only pilots that survived it, and survived every mission since. And he's crashed on pretty much all of his missions. So
I was going to say, he's almost like he's the main character.
It's I think there's some kind of cosmic force willing his survival, because he is a dumbass and would never survive in any other context. He is my favorite character, for the records. In case anybody gets the impression that I hate Luke, which is very possible given how I talk about him. No, he is my favorite character. Don't worry.
he's had some help from his droids as well. I think
That's
it was
true.
C-3PO that saved him from Valence in one of the past issues as well. So
Yes. One thing I do want to touch on before we continue, he's been sent to Tatooine because, you know, in issue 30, I don't think you were here for that issue, Al. Leia was sent to Metalorn.
Yeah.
And that is happening right now, and so that Luke has something to do in the meantime, and he's not thinking about that and worried about her being in a dangerous situation. General Dodonna's said, "Okay, here you go. Go and recruit some blockade runners."
right on Tatooine of all places. I'm not sure if that's the best strategy for the rebellion, but it's pretty similar to some of the other missions they've been sending Luke on lately. I mean, he's encountered pirates and just any excuse to get Luke with Leia. This time he's by himself, so it's a little bit different. He's with the droids.
I wonder if Jan was trying to arrange a marriage at this time.
You know,
like, let's send them together in a spaceship. Maybe he thought we needed more rebel fighters in the long run.
Yeah.
You think Jan would he'd just be pairing couples left and right all over the galaxy for his missions?
I mean, I'll
ship you with Princess Leia. Now go into the spaceship and don't come back for 9 months.
Can they afford to lose Leia for 9 months due to pregnancy? I'm not sure.
I don't think they can afford to lose Luke for 9 months due to incompetence. Like they can't afford anybody. They need people.
I think that they had expendable people if they had that one random guy up that tower watching for the X-Wings to come back with his binoculars.
Didn't he die?
I think he did.
One of the comics, somebody just swiped.
Yeah,
he died.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't remember.
So we have
Jan never liked him. That's why he was up there.
Right. So we have fine additions in the chat. Brady, nice to see you there. So Luke sees there's one evaporator left working on the farm. So he finds that's kind of curious, and he goes to check it out, and somebody pulls a gun on him. Little do we know, it happens to be his old friend Fixer. Wouldn't you believe it?
It's really nice to see them here.
I do find this line a bit funny here. Do exactly what I say or start spending the rest of your life dead. That to me has the feeling of someone going, "Oh, I'm about to point a blaster at the back of someone's head. I need to think of something cool to say."
It's a very Biff Tannen line.
Okay.
It's like, have you seen those?
Doesn't quite work, but it's the best I can think of.
Have you seen those metal signs you can get at like thrift stores that are like, "With the price of ammunition, there won't be a warning shot"? It gives that kind of energy with this.
You know what that gun reminds me of? If you scroll back to the last page, it looks kind of like a squirt gun. It reminds me of the Clone Wars micro series where the Wat Tambor character kind of pulls like a little teeny tiny adorable looking gun on Anakin Skywalker.
Like a carrot.
Good point.
It looks a little bit like a weird carrot. The gun that he pulls, it's like the barrel's a little bit orange and a little bit like has got like texture on it.
Yeah,
strange.
Anyway, so they're double blind here. So Fixer doesn't know that that's Luke from behind, and Luke doesn't know that that's Fixer. But he's got the lightsaber skills. Like Fixer doesn't realize that Luke's almost a Jedi Knight now. He's been training with the remote all this time, so he's able to disarm Fixer. Luckily, he doesn't kill him, but absolutely destroys his blaster there with his lightsaber, which I guess has a white blade. I mean, they're close. They're close to blue. Luke Skywalker's lightsaber has been all different colors, like throughout this comic run. I think it's red later on in the fight.
I love the idea that
saber color until the 2000s.
Brennan, yes.
I love the idea that he says Han Solo taught me about distracting a foe. I love the idea that, like, a friend of yours, you would say their full name when talking about them in a way like this. I just think it reads so unnatural Like,
And he
It
says it while he's swinging the saber too. Like,
I'd
oh,
just be
you know.
like somewhere playing disc golf and then drop my friend's full name for no reason while in the motion.
You know, John Johnson told me a
Although-
lot about throwing discs. Like, yeah, no,
Yes.
that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, the line is a bit unnatural, but the fact that this is something he learned from Han, I
Yeah,
do like
that's cool.
that. And
I do.
it makes
for
me
sure.
think of, you know, that moment in classic Star Wars where Han is he's got these guys who are pointing blasters at him, and he moves so the sun is behind him, so that they have to look at him, obviously, and that means they'll be looking directly at the sun. And
You're right. Blinded
Yeah.
by the twin suns. Just real quick, we have Star Wars Scran in here. Nice to see you. And then we have Audatech as well. I can't pull up the comments because I'm technically not the host. It's Alex. He has internet problems, but good to see you guys here anyway.
I think it's really cool that they brought the thing I remember about this arc the most is probably or this storyline the most is that it brought back Fixer. It's probably the most memorable portion of these comics. I like that they did that they kept what was largely deleted scenes, right? Kept it within the lore with these comics. I think that's really nice because it elevated those deleted scenes into like official lore status really early on by keeping that. They didn't have to do that. They could have had any old friend of Luke's for this, but you know, it's nice. It's nice, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
I like seeing them. Obviously, Tank has the better arc of these guys, but in the 2000s. But that's way in the future. And for now, you know, this is nice. I like this. I like seeing these characters who. The audio drama was still a couple years away, right? It's 81, so this would be their proper introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
In
nice. It's nice to
decades,
see.
I can't wait to talk about that arc that you talked about.
That's one of my favorites. I really like
yeah.
that one. I spoiled myself
18
on
years-
that really stupidly.
In 18 years, we'll play that clip of you with that prelude for it. It'll be the intro for that episode.
That's gonna be great.
So Luke asked Fixer, why aren't you on Tashi Station? So apparently he's got a different type of work. He's working indirectly for the House of Tag, checking up on some of these homesteads. So the House of Tag actually bought up the Lars homestead here. I don't know why they'd buy it. It doesn't look like there's much left besides the one working evaporator. But Luke doesn't really like that. So he sees Cammy's there as well. Fixer's I'm not sure if they're married or not, but his former girlfriend.
Yes.
I like her fit, by the way.
Yes.
The blue and green there matches the skyhopper she's got there. Very nice. Blue
Yes.
hair, blue and black hair.
And
You got something to
apparently
say,
they are
Robert?
married.
Oh, they are married. Nice.
So I do find this interesting, where he says, "Everyone assumed you died, Luke, along with your aunt and uncle."
Mm-hmm. Which would make
That
sense.
is fascinating.
That
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I wonder if anyone else discovered the like picked through the rubble, looked for Luke. Do you think? You think they looked
I
for
think
Luke's
they picked
body?
through the rubble.
Yeah.
I assume
He-
did Luke
he also
do anything? Did Luke do anything with the bodies? Do we know?
I don't think so. That's
he
what I
just
was
walked
about
in.
to say.
it's not shown on screen if he did, but
It's not shown on screen. As far as I know, nobody's commented, like went back and said, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
he
some
did this
grave
way.
markers here, and Grandpa Klieg Lars is like also buried there. But
True.
What a deaths.
True.
What a deaths
Right.
going on.
anyway,
It's Tatooine, baby.
yeah,
War zone.
it's dangerous life on the frontier. Anyway, Fixer says to Cammy, it's Skywalker back from the dead, and she says not little wormy. So they're not too happy to see him after. They're still kind of calling him names and that. I'm not sure how I feel about that,
Well, that's-
but
Well, that's what she calls him. We get that moment in A New Hope, or at least the deleted scene, which, of course, we also see in the comic adaptation, where she calls him Wormy, and there's that line about it might have been Fixer saying this. Did you hear a young noise blast through here, or
Mhm.
something?
right.
It was a very strange line.
Mm-hmm. And when Luke's, I think it's in the novel, Luke's flying his land speeder, and like there's an old woman or something that's like, "You crazy kids are driving too fast" or something. And I think it's only in the novelization, but I thought that was funny.
Y'all mentioned Cammy's design already, but I do really like that blue and green suit. It's very slick looking somehow, even though maybe those two colors shouldn't work the way they are there. I think it's a great looking outfit.
I like how it matches her hair and the Skyhopper as well.
Yeah,
like double feature.
Very fashionable.
Matches her boots. I mean, got the whole look going. And she mentions that Luke does look taller, so something's changed about him. He has been on several missions from the rebellion, so has a lot more confidence.
Which is a bit funny, given that he's wearing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, to give the new Marvel series some credit, they at least went with the outfit from the end of the movie instead of the white one that he wore throughout
I love the idea that at the end, when Luke has that new jacket and the medal on, that as soon as that scene ended, he walked back to his quarters and he was like, "Oh, this is really pinching in some places." And as soon as he got back to his quarters, he changed and was like, much better.
I look exactly the same as I've done for the whole movie. And I'm going to look exactly the same for the rest of this franchise.
I didn't recognize him when he showed up in Last Jedi not wearing his Episode 1 outfit. I was like, who is this?
His shirt's a little bit lower cut here. You know, he's kind of showing off muscles there.
Doing a little He-Man thing.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers Power of the Force action figures from like back in the day.
Power of the Force just looks like Luke from the Marvel comics. And Luke from the Marvel comics, I tell everyone, they made him look like He-Man. That's what I tell all my friends. He's He-Man Luke in these comics. And sometimes he has a mullet and sometimes he doesn't. Which is kind of interesting.
You know, we're still a few years away from comics getting real big into mullets. So just thank your lucky stars that we avoided that.
Well, he has one in issue 107, right?
Yeah.
He might. I don't remember.
But that is 1986, so that would kind of make sense.
Far. Yeah.
Right.
That's actually like appropriate for the time and not 1994.
So Luke says he's been gone too far off world to go back to moisture farming, and he mentions his business is on Mos Eisley. And meanwhile, C-3PO, who's up on the ridge, kind of calls out to Luke, lets him know that...
I do not think his proportions look good in that art piece.
Yeah, he looks a little bit overweight.
Looks like a chicken, a bottom-heavy chicken.
Right. His torso's a little bit too thick. I guess he's been drinking too much oil, extra calories or something. I don't know.
Too much Sprite plus tea.
Look who we have here. Look at that.
Yeah, the tag command, the Imperial troop transport, which chronologically, I guess release order, we should have covered this. We have some special guest hosts for the Wookiee storybook and the Imperial troop transport, which we're going to cover in a later episode, probably the next time we meet.
On the shelf. Yep.
Right. So stay tuned for that on Alex's channel. But it's a nice connection that we see here in this issue where we see the Imperial troop transport on Tatooine.
What do you guys think of the concept of the Imperial troop transport?
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So I have the Lego set. Now that's based off of the show, the TV show, what is The Mandalorian or whatever. But I have the Lego set specifically because it's really cool. It's a little like a cool EU thing from back in the day. I will say the exposed pockets of stormtroopers, and I know that was just for the toy. When you see it like in action, you're like,
so funny.
Wouldn't you? You know,
it's like
why wouldn't you cover your troopers and just have a little slit for them to shoot out?
Also, it looks so hot. It looks so hot in the little pockets. Like they got to be dying.
It really does.
Those people.
Did they take turns in those little slots? Like, you know, like the Imperial stormtroopers that were riding on Dubeks and then some were walking. Do you think they take turns standing in those little slots and some people kind of get to drive the transport?
Get to take a seat.
You got to put somebody on top to man the gun, right? Is that what that is? Is that?
You think they have
Well,
a little area they can lean on in the
I thi-
suit? Because otherwise, they're just standing for hours.
I think they're
Well, the
leaning
armor-
back on the speeder. But as far as the gun emplacement that's on top, I think it's like a tank. So someone's inside it
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
can
what I assumed.
pop out of the top to man the gun.
You know,
Well,
I wonder if they did rock,
Stormtrooper
paper,
armor-
scissors for who went in which slot. Do you think one slot is like slightly shaded because of the angle of the turret and everyone wants that spot? The outside spots are more dangerous from the Tuscans, so they're all trying to get that middle slot. Or do you think it's
Right.
like a urinal and no one wants the middle slot? They want the outsides. You know what? I'm so curious about this now. Why
It's
isn't there a
We
novel?
have to save all this good content for the all this good discussion for the Imperial Troop episode. I hope somebody has to own the toy, right? And so they can show it off. Somebody, you
I
have it.
hope so.
I
hope so.
have the booklet. Sadly,
You have
not
you have the
toy.
booklet. Somebody needs the toy. They need to be able to. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe one of our special guests will own a copy, not just of the literature, but also the toy.
I'll bring the booklet to the episode.
Nice. Because I had to find a PDF. That's one story, which I don't know. There's not much that happens in it, but I don't have a physical
Like 7
copy.
pages. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it next time. I love it. I think it's so cool.
It fills in a lot of the blanks from the film.
It actually
in between
does. Yeah.
scenes.
It expands the universe, you might say.
Oh, it might.
So Stormtrooper armor has internal cooling, doesn't it? That's a thing that comes up in Tatooine Ghost.
That
I
is
have
true.
read that.
Yeah.
From certain
Mhm.
sources. I don't know if Sand Trooper armor has the same. Possibly.
You'd hope.
It always makes me laugh that stormtroopers have the troop transport and then they're like, nah, we won't make enough of these for the planet. Some of you have to ride giant lizards.
Right. You'd think they could find some more lizards for everybody to have a ride, or maybe double
The
up.
Emperor-
Or-
Maybe they used to all have troop transports, but the Emperor did budget cuts to build the Death Star, and so they had to switch to dewbacks.
Mhm. They have to cut corners to save
Yeah.
some money.
I like this little drift he does to avoid the bantha. That is some fine maneuvering there.
Luke
So is it-
Skywalker, Tokyo Drift.
Yeah. Is it Luke Skywalker piloting, or is it
It's
C-3PO? Because in the film it was C-3PO driving.
Luke's got his hands on the controls here.
So he doesn't trust 3PO.
Would y'all let droids drive you around?
Are they designed
would
for that
trust-
purpose?
I would trust R2. I would not trust C-3PO.
That's my thing. If the
100%
droid
with
is
you, Robert.
if the droid is designed to do it, like R2, sure, why not? If the droid is designed to serve cocktails at a party, no.
Well, R2 can do that as well.
Yeah, they can do multiple.
Jabba's
things.
palace or Jabba's sail barge.
I would say it depends on what we're talking about. If it's like 5 o'clock rush hour traffic, yeah, I don't want to be driving, stopping and starting. I'd have a droid do that. Anyway,
Good point.
If we're on if we're going down like the Grand Canyon, like on like a if we're doing that, if that's if that's where we're going, I should probably let the droid do it. I would definitely.
Yeah,
die.
that's
would
what I was
definitely
thinking
get
too.
myself killed.
that way you can view the
I would
scenery.
drive in like a Tuscan burrow and get myself killed.
Oh,
I'd get caught in a womp rat hole.
Surely
Those
they
are
have
2
like
meters long.
automatic pilot on some of these land speeder type ships. You would
You'd
think,
think,
right?
wouldn't you?
That Star Wars in an advanced technological galaxy. Maybe not, but
So they nearly hit a bantha.
yeah, they find a frozen bantha. Luke feels it, and it's cold, frozen stiff.
Can you
Under the-
imagine you're on a desert planet and you find a frigid cow? You'd be so confused.
I'd be like, man, the milk already cold.
Right? I mean, maybe it was
Milkshake.
frozen in transport. I know people
They already
eat
got the ice
banthas
cream.
like bantha meat.
Yeah.
So it's possible that this maybe fell off a food transport. Possibly, I don't know.
Oh,
Anyways.
that's how they just transport. They don't transport the meat. They transport the whole thing, just
Mhm.
frozen already.
Is that where blue milk comes from?
Well,
Oh.
nothing goes to waste. That's why they
Actually, come
keep
to think of
flying.
it, there are blue banthas. We won't get there for a while until we get to West End Games, but
We're going to cover that.
there's a specific kind of bantha on a different planet that's not from Tatooine that's semi-sentient. So, yeah.
If I go out to milk the cow and it's like, hey, what's up? That job is over. I'm quitting that job. We're not doing this. If I have to hold a conversation with it, no, done. Anyway, so they find this. They find this frozen creature in the middle of the desert.
That's a hilarious concept. I love it.
And they see some stormtroopers up top, so they know it's some sort of trap. And I guess the stormtroopers are, I don't know if they've found Luke, but they just blow the thing to bits. It looks like.
Well, they don't know.
I love
the
angle of that panel.
The
perspective.
There's this bantha is one that's wandered off, and they've been looking for it.
Okay, and then they just shoot it.
And they don't want the evidence out there that that they've been performing these tests.
So how do frozen banthas walk away?
That's a good question. The Empire is so bad at keeping track of things; they lose stationary objects.
It just slides like ice. You just push it. It keeps going.
Like in the Mario games,
some things are bound
slippy.
Right.
Some things are bound to slip through the cracks when you govern the entire cosmos, the entire known galaxy. It's like, we're gonna lose a few frozen bantha steaks here and there.
You'd think.
Yeah.
That's a very good question, actually, because even if it's at the the outer edge of the area that was frozen, then wouldn't that be notable? Wouldn't that be noticeable in the the surrounding area?
Yes,
you would think.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, that one doesn't add up to me.
And obviously,
yeah,
a flash frozen bantha can't get very far or anywhere.
Frozen bantha, yeah. It's so funny that's an actual plot point to this comic.
Right.
I love
it. Okay, you know what? I'm going to headcanon that some Tuscans found it.
Tried to drag it off.
And moved it there.
That's a lot of work for something that's dead. That does not...
Well, maybe they thought, okay.
Were they trying to save it, or were they like perfectly preserved?
That's true.
We can keep this and eat it.
That's true.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I can accept that.
Yeah, there's a lot of scavengers on Tatooine, though. Stuff moves around.
That's true.
So you got to watch it, otherwise it might be
on
stolen.
Tatooine. Stuff moves around. Scott Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect analysis. Put that on the back of a book about Tatooine.
Right. Can't leave anything out in the open. So Luke speculates that it might be
the fact that they just blow up the bantha.
All that wasted bantha steak crap.
I mean, it's technically still there. It's just probably cooked to a level that's beyond medium rare.
Would I eat it off the ground if it was just a little bit well done? Probably.
Hey, they got there's some nice chuck in there. You gotta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you have womp rats, all these scurriers. You got all these things walking around there, so the ground's probably pretty dirty.
Bantha filet mignon is bantha filet mignon.
That's what they keep saying to me.
So Luke speculates that it's the House of Tag might be developing some thing that isn't new methods of moisture farming. So our first duty, he mentions, is to dig up some blockade runners, which he means smugglers, that General Dodonna assigned us to do that. And in order to do that, he goes to Mos Eisley. Mm-hmm. But he speculates that the Tag bunch is obviously working on something for the Empire. And I'm not leaving Tatooine until I find out what it is. And then we move on to the Jundland Waste? I thought it was Jutland
Yes.
Waste. But he says there's the escape of the. You took the escape of the Bantha very well, Orman. I expected you to go raging about slashing things that outmoded weapon you carry, referring to the lightsaber he has. So
there's something
Aaron-
very strange going on with Baron Tag's head in this panel.
yeah, he's not blue. He looks kind of like Grand Moff Hysia from the Jedi Prince series a little bit there.
Yeah, I
Same
would say
facial
so.
hair.
Well, he's got a very square
comp.
head here.
He's getting a little square.
He's just a little nerd.
And I like how they refer to each other as brother.
Yes.
Kind of weird.
So this is yes. So we've met
As if you didn't know that they're brothers.
Yeah.
met 3 of the
Anytime I
4
see my
Tag
brother, I'm
siblings
like,
now.
hello, brother. I just constantly bring it up that
Mhm.
we're related.
So we have Orman Tag, and who's this other guy? This kind of
That is
guy that's
Silas
going bold.
Tag,
Silas,
who is the House of Tag's head scientist.
Okay, and he's
I
got
like his I like his hairline.
And the other one, the younger brother, is Ulrich Tag, who is an Imperial fleet commander.
that's right. That's who we saw in the prologue, and looks like he's got some sort of stew or something. I don't know. He's got like soup or oatmeal. I don't know. He's eating from a bowl there.
Cheerios.
I think, unless he's just bringing that up just because, apparently it's food paste.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
food. Mm.
Yum. I could go for some of that food paste right now.
Looks delicious.
I
And
wonder
then-
if food paste is sold at there's a place called what's it called? I used it in my short story. Taj Biscuit. Biscuit
Yeah.
Baron. That Tajco operates a fast food chain around the galaxy on multiple planets called
That's
Biscuit
right.
Baron. I wonder if Tajco's Biscuit Baron serves some yummy food paste as a side.
Mhm.
I
It's
wonder.
It's like Colonel Sanders for KFC, but it's General Tag and the Tag family. Kind of similar. I think that's where
Yeah.
they got that idea from.
I think it is.
So
I
here-
found their menu, and sadly, food paste is not on their menu. They have blue sauce, though, whatever that means. And of course, Quick Snack and Jolly Meal. So I'd like to head over to Biscuit Baron. It's so funny to me that that's like a side hustle that these guys in this comic have. These guys are currently operating a galaxy-wide fast food chain called Biscuit Baron that has his likeness on the sign.
So
That's
we have
hilarious.
we have two methods of acquiring funds. 1, Biscuit Baron fast food joint. 2, Death Ray weapon, freeze ray.
It's Omega Frost Ray.
Wow.
I wonder if these are all connected.
They're
Like,
just developing it so that they can transport their biscuits easier.
They are making sure that the ice cream machine never goes down again because they are sick of hearing from people.
right.
So
So
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
important here. He says, in fact, Silas, one reason I picked this abominable little world as a spot for you to conduct your experiments was the hope that word of it might reach a certain party, a young rebel. And Silas says, another vendetta? Doesn't being Baron and running our family keep you busy enough? Because, you know, there was that earlier arc
Mhm.
where Luke blew up the thing inside the Yavin gas giant,
Right.
and Orman is not happy about that.
Mhm. So they're after revenge specifically.
And
for
he
Luke
says
Skywalker.
here, there were several arid planets that fit your conditions, but a name in the Imperial census records drew me to this one, Luke Skywalker.
Right.
So-
So it's readily
like the-
available
So
where you can find Luke Skywalker. You just have to know his name. You
yes.
can look him up in the white pages, right?
Almost
So-
like there were a bunch of comics about finding out his name.
So
Wouldn't
it
that
really
be
is
crazy?
just a case of you blew up my thing, so I'm going to ruin your planet.
Mhm.
yes.
And they want him to stumble upon this little experiment, the Omega Frost Ray, which sounds like a terrible idea for a Tatooine as far as technology goes. But anyway, we see Luke Skywalker. Night falls, and he's finally to Mos Eisley. He goes into the cantina there. He has the droids pilot his speeder, tells him to keep it running in case he has any trouble inside. He says, man, this place hasn't changed a bit. I thought he was only in the Chalmun's Cantina once.
He was, yeah. That's also a very interesting looking alien right there to the left. That is
This is actually the third time we've seen him in this cantina, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Because he came here in Tatooine Sojourn.
Tatooine Sojourn, right. Okay, so maybe if we take this dialogue into consideration, it makes sense that he went back so that he experienced it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny he would be able to tell that it hasn't changed a bit, only being there once, but maybe he's just very observant.
So another thing I want to add, there is another reason for them choosing Tatooine, or more broadly speaking, a desert planet for the testing, and that's because they're intentionally picking something with a particularly extreme
opposite temperature.
Yes, they want to see it still works. It's a stress.
I guess
test, basically.
that makes
sense.
It
works on Tatooine. It works anywhere. But considering now what we know that Mustafar is a planet that exists, I wonder why they didn't take it volcanic and took it only desert. Because wouldn't volcanic be more extreme than desert?
Maybe it was too extreme. Maybe it was like, this is just not going to work on.
Yeah.
Mustafar.
Yeah, true.
Well, it would make sense to test it on Hoth, but I do think that Tatooine can get pretty cold at night. I think that's another lore. But anyway, we see that there's some bar fights going on as Luke gets inside, and he backs into none other than...
Those are not that's not Figrin Dan's group, is it? They look too buff to be Figrin Dan in the model nodes. Are those different Biths?
They started doing Bith hormone replacement. They're like getting buff. They're doing Biff steroids or whatever.
They're on Bithosterone.
Yeah,
that's how their head gets so big. Kind of like Barry Bonds. Just anyway, I like the red eyes too, by the way. Anyway, Luke backs into he makes reference to a friendly face and backs right into Han Solo, who is there after his arc with Jabba the Hutt, but it's really Mosat Benid. He actually goes to Tatooine. Goes to Tatooine at the end of that issue, and he says, hey kid, haven't you learned to stay out of low-class dives? You don't know who we'll bump into. And Chewbacca's in a fight as well. He's bashing two guys' heads together.
Looks like Merman from He-Man is one of them.
Yeah, it's just very disorderly in Chalmun's Cantina. Like they need a bouncer or something to keep order.
Well, I feel like Chalmun himself could have laid down the law, because Chalmun's a Wookiee, so
I think
after what Han's done recently, messing with Mosat Benid, I do wonder why he would go back to Tatooine of all places immediately.
That's a good point.
Han's a glutton. He's a glutton for punishment.
Yes, where Jabba has his palace and everything.
That's his chill spot, though. Chalmun's Cantina.
They didn't know that yet.
I mean, where else?
He was looking for Boshek to go and be mad to Boshek. He was going to be like, "Why'd you have to break my record, you jerk?" That's why he's here.
Wasn't his girlfriend on Tatooine that other actress girl that not Bria Theron
flirting with? No, the one he was flirting with in A New Hope. She was there. Yeah.
Right. So maybe he's there for that reason.
What's her name? Like
reconnect.
I can't
with her.
remember. It was like began with a J, I feel like.
Anyway, Brennan's looking that up on Wikipedia.
Right.
Yeah, I will go and find out who that was.
After resolving our differences with Jabba the Hutt, Chewie and me delivered him back here. Okay.
Right. Well, he says,
Jenny.
Luke says, well,
It did begin
Jenny.
with the J.
Jenny,
Yeah.
of course. He says, well, if you're feeling idealistic, Han, I'm on a mission that you two would be perfect for. And wait a second, he finds fixers in there. So Luke had mentioned he was going to Mos Eisley. And when Fixer recognized Luke stomping around his old homestead there, Fixer assumed that Luke was a rebel. So everybody's kind of on the lookout for rebel activity on Tatooine. This is alluded to also in Tatooine Sojourn, so that might tie into some context clues where this story takes place. But he says, Fixer, what are you doing in this place? Luke, I've been trying to find you. Cammy and me did something bad, and I came to warn you. Well, he didn't really warn him. I try to understand, Skywalker. You made it off the sand pile. So he ended up reporting Luke to the Imperials because he assumed he was a rebel. It says, sounds like you're a rebel, Luke. To protect my job, Cammy and me decided there was no other choice but to you reported me, Fixer. I oughta. So all of a sudden, like, Luke can just knock out Fixer, who's always been bigger and stronger than him, but goes to show you Luke's newfound confidence after working with the rebellion there.
To be fair, I think
blew
he's
up
been
the
in
Death
more
Star-
serious fights since he left Tatooine like 3 months ago than Fixer's ever been in his life. So,
Yes.
If I blew up the Death Star, I think I could do anything. I think I'm a big deal.
I definitely
Right.
think I'm better than Fixer, who with his like torn up vest jacket here.
And his
So-
like
This is a very minor
and
thing,
his
but
nice
this
his
looks
is
like
Knights
a-
of the Round Table helmet.
Yeah.
Looks like a construction worker, really.
Yeah, that's you.
Al, does this bug you at all? Having two word balloon tails?
Definitely bugs me.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I
I
never
get-
like when the one you're supposed to read first is lower than the one you're supposed to read second. But that's sometimes you can't avoid that.
Yeah.
That's why I have
they
a hard
only-
time reading manga. It's just very confusing for me because like the way it's done. It's a headache.
How about that disco light that's hanging from the ceiling there?
What's that? Could you zoom in on that green alien real quick so I can screenshot it? Yeah, that one there. Thank you.
Looks like two of them.
That
One
is
in
an
front, one
Interesting
in back.
looking alien.
Unless he's two-headed.
It's like a tiger Twi'lek thing. It's like
Ooh, I don't like him.
it's really interesting. I've never seen an alien like that.
It's like the left side of his face is all swollen. It almost looks like he's two-headed or something. And there's
Yeah,
something. There's one
there's
looking
like-
at you and one looking straight.
There's like bear ears to it too, and its legs are scaly. It's like reptilian and furry all at once. It's interesting.
I don't like
Yeah.
him. Somebody throw him down a flight of stairs, please. I don't.
A little Chagrian, a little bit, but definitely those ears are kind of distinct on the top.
Auditech says it looks like Masameta's species a little bit.
Yeah.
I can see. There's a little
Chagrian,
Masameta,
yeah.
Different
I can
colors.
see that
but
a
yeah.
bit.
Yes.
And also, Chagrians don't have those like really weird, fuzzy tiger-looking ears.
No.
That
I
is
also,
an
I
interesting
also
looking
don't like
thing.
the little light fixture that Scott pointed out. I don't like it. I do not like this. I don't like this bar. They need to
If
revoke
Leia,
the
if Leia went in there, she'd get.
demolish this place.
If Leia went in there, she'd have PTSD from the interrogator thing that
Oh yeah.
was on the Death Star because it looks exactly like that, doesn't it?
And then the stormtroopers proceed to shoot at him. At least they have the wherewithal to go into an alleyway and don't just shoot up the bar, because
They're
that would be
civilized gentlemen, or maybe
Yeah.
they're just tired from having to stand all day on an Imperial troop transport.
possibly.
I like that they run this one down.
Oof. Got a little
Right.
Grand Theft Auto in here.
So the droids have the speeder running, and they just pile on into the land speeder. And Han refers to C-3PO as Bronze Britches again. That's a callback to I think one of, if not one of the earlier comics, then
Goldenrod
newspaper
always
strip?
makes sense, but the fact that C-3PO isn't bronze makes that one kind of bizarre.
Yeah, that one's not great.
mhm.
He is driving this time, by the way.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
let that happen.
Anyway,
3PO driving in a escape car chase scene sounds horrible. Horrible.
That's kind of
So
what
that
happened at
means-
the end of Shadows of the Empire. Kind of.
3PO kills a person here.
Yes.
He runs them over. Right.
C3PO, wanted murderer.
3PO's death counter ticks up 1. Just
I have the death penalty on 3 systems.
I always thought that sand troopers had jetpacks. I thought that's what they carried on their backs. That's what the action figures had. So I don't understand why they can't just follow the land speeder in the sky, right?
they
But
fly now,
appar-
don't you know?
Yeah, I would have thought they always flew, but
Yeah.
apparently not. So they check out the
They fly if you hit them hard enough.
Yeah,
That's
they check out,
C3PO said that.
apparently the coolant's leaking because one of the stormtroopers shot the part of the land speeder that houses the coolant. It's leaking coolant, and they think that the speeder will eventually fail. The engine will run out of coolant. That's the end of the first issue. What do you guys think about this?
Good issue overall. Nice
nice.
to see Han and Chewie show up, even though it doesn't super make sense because it's a huge galaxy. I mean, what are the chances? What are the odds? But it's nice to see them.
Mm-hmm.
It
think
feels
this
very
was-
standard.
I think this was probably my least favorite issue of these 3.
That's fair.
Fair assessment.
Yeah.
I think the reason why at the beginning I said this is what I think of when I think of Star Wars, the Marvel Star Wars before Empire Strikes Back, is this feels very, very much like, like Monster of the Week, if you will. Like very much standard operating procedure for these comics. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I feel like the other 2 issues are kind of like stories you could play out with your action figures in your play set as a kid, particularly this next issue, issue 32, or with the Sandcrawler and the Jawas. So I thought issue 31 was a little bit different, but definitely having Han show up, I know it was a way to introduce him into the story. It felt very, I don't want to spoil it, but Death Troopers, like where Han just shows up with Chewie out of nowhere.
Yeah. That is
Cover-
very true.
Cover your ears. Sorry if I spoiled that for anyone, but we're on to issue 32. I very much like the sunset starting out here in this first page.
Very pleasant
Yes.
aesthetic.
Ooh, yeah. That is very nice.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the speeder has broken down due to a loss of coolant. They're stranded in the Dune Sea, and Luke tries to repair it, but he sees that there's no way to get more coolant. I think the droids offer to give
They do.
themselves up as a form of coolant, so they can shut themselves down, and then they can use the coolant for the droids for the land speeder.
Yes.
But they see they have to move fast because Chewbacca finds out that the stormtroopers are coming on foot after them in the hot sun. One has a dewback, or 2 of them have a dewback there. But it sounds like a tough job being a stormtrooper on Tatooine for sure.
What do you think a stormtrooper has to do to be sent to places like these?
I think there's a story about that in the was it the Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina? I forget the name of the stormtrooper. There's a stormtrooper's tale where he's like a former criminal, and he's in jail, and they give him an opportunity to join the Imperial Army, and he takes it up and finds out he made a mistake. But we see Luke and Han. They use the coolant to get the land speeder back up and running. The droids are out of commission at this point.
I like these 2 visits here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if Brandon was here, he'd screenshot those, add them to his archive. But they come up upon a sandcrawler. And I like this scene that shows the open sandcrawler bay. And they have like tiny miniature sandcrawlers there.
That is nice.
I've never seen
So
that before.
So they were trying to get back to Luke's ship, but it's been stripped for parts by the Jawas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Not-
that's what I'm saying. You can't leave anything out in the open on Tatooine.
Luckily, they've got
Mark's
Chewie here to dispense some justice, so it's all right. It's all right.
Right. But Han says, wait. So they try to make a deal with the Jawas instead of fighting them. They try to say, well, you can have it, but we need a ride into Mos Eisley. So I think they're trying to get back to the Millennium Falcon. And Han mentions that he has some money stowed away from his last mission in there where they could buy the droids back, because the droids are part of the deal. They're going to sell them to the Jawas because Jawas want all the technology that they have with them.
I like that the Jawas provide a bit of an opportunity for the letterer to have a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is very nice.
This one here saying Zwilligs. At least that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty cartoonish on the next panel there. Inside, Han can't stand up because it's obviously a sandcrawler. It's not tall enough for him. And he just hits his head on top there. I think it's on the next page. He says, make a deal.
Oh, there it is.
So he says, oh, wait a minute. The sandcrawler is going in the wrong direction to Mos Eisley. And Luke says, Han, if I understand right, they're keeping their bargain, but they're going to finish their scavenger run first. And Han says, nice. How many days out of the way is that? Not days, Han. Months. 3 of them. And Han says, 3 months? We'll die of concussions banging around the Jawa-sized compartments, kid.
That's a good Han line.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Bounce.
And they come up on a stormtrooper patrol. The stormtroopers know that they're looking for some people that blasted their way out of Mos Eisley Cantina, so they decide to check this sandcrawler. And the Jawas realize that, oh, these people aboard, these are the people the Imperials are looking for. But Chewie and Han actually come out of the top of the sandcrawler, blast the stormtroopers, and they go on their way after that.
I will say this. If the Jawas are willing to put up with them for 3 months, that is a good deal.
Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to stand with the Jawas for 3 months.
No, that is theoretically very generous of them, but in practice would be torture.
Sure. So they stop this Imperial barrier very easily. They just, coming out of the top, shoot a couple blaster bolts, and then they plow through with the sandcrawler there. The Jawas are very much appreciative of this because they basically save them from the Imperials.
So the depiction of this scene is a bit wonky, and I think that's a result of this presumably working on the Marvel method, with the draw this thing for me, and I'll fill in the dialogue and everything later. Because if you've got this panel here with the stormtroopers up there and these ones down here, that one sitting on the dewback, and what's meant to be happening here on this panel is they cause an avalanche, and they're shooting at the ones up above, and everything collapses on top of the ones below.
Instant avalanche, as it says. But they got out of that very easily. Like, you'd think the Imperials would do a better job setting up a blockade, particularly against something as big as the sandcrawler, but apparently not.
It sweeps the stormtroopers above into their companions below.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the Jawas are very appreciative, and they get out. They bring them, which looks like a giant evaporator out there. No wonder our friends are excited. They're under competition for loot. So they stop at this evaporator that the Jawas try to salvage, but then they see that it's part of the House of Tag weapon, this freeze ray, which I have the name of it right here, the Omega Frost project. And the thing goes off and freezes an entire sandcrawler. So there's a other sandcrawler, and it's collapsing.
This is a nice panel here with the effect. It was just flash white. That is,
yes,
right. That's the freeze ray going off real time. Pretty cool. And Han says, "That could have been us, kid. If you haven't yelled, was that the Force in action?" He says, "Not this time, Han. I felt the tower starting to get cold, and it reminded me of yesterday," referring back to the frozen bantha that he found. And the sandcrawler just disintegrates. So the freeze ray seriously does some damage there. We see the Imperial's troop transport in the background there. And then we see Orman Tag and Silas Tag there. He's got a coat now to protect him from the colder elements.
He really does just look like Captain Cold now with his little glasses and the parka. He's just like, yep, we're giving in. I'm just a supervillain.
Right. He says the Omega Frost, brilliant, Silas. It's going to be the club with which we beat Darth Vader from the Emperor's favor. Baron Tag. What about the
metaphor? But
yeah, Baron Tag. What about the rebels, sir? They're still observing us. Good. They haven't guessed that the conductor tower has a sensor system that detected them and alerted us.
And I'm going to explain all of this to you, random Imperial.
Right. Well, it's informing the reader as well.
Yes.
So we find out what's going on there. They have the Imperial troop transport fires its laser cannon not too close to their position. One of them is Luke Skywalker. I want him alive to deal with him personally. And then Luke and Han and Chewie run off when they're getting fired at. And they... and
Luke knows something's wrong.
Right. And then they deal with the Jawas again. They get back in the sandcrawler. The sandcrawler runs into the Imperial troop transport, tips it over, and then they take what they refer to as the Jawa Express back to Mos Eisley. So a little bit of roundabout way. They figure out what's going on with the Omega Frost Ray, but they still end up going back to Han's ship, the Millennium Falcon, on.
It is a bit funny that, of all things, they're trying to outrun them in a sandcrawler.
Mm-hmm. Which you look at as slow, but it's so bulky that nothing's really going to stop it unless they get hit by that frost ray. So they're pursued by a couple more Imperial troop transports. They dump these fuel barrels out the top, and then they shoot at them so they explode. And we get some pretty cool explosions and some fire scenes there. I like that panel in the middle. And they just take out the rest of the Imperials, and that's basically the end of the second issue.
Not a lot interesting stuff going on. There's a little bit, here and there, but it's very much. This is very much like, this is very much issue 31 or what are we 32 of an ongoing series. It's like, yep, now we're in the swing of things.
They definitely padded some of the pages there. The action really stopped after they left the cantina, I think, and they just went a roundabout method. I mean, it's very obvious to me that they're telling a story that you could act out with your Star Wars toys here. Like, wouldn't it be cool if Han and Luke were in the sandcrawler with the droids and that? So you get the Luke's land speeder that he sold or something very similar to that. So definitely something you could play out as a kid with your own toys. So I have a hard.
The droids have been revived. They've got fresh, well, not fresh, but new coolant put in them, so they're up and about now, and the
Right.
land speeder is working again.
Right. They get coolant from the
Yes.
sandcrawler as well.
And they're
So
heading back to Mos Eisley, which they just were in the previous issue.
right. I have a hard stop at 6:15. Do you guys want to plow through the last issue really quick, or what do you guys want to do? Stop it here?
We can probably manage it.
I think if we just burn through, even we could just do the highlights. You know, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. One of the highlights. This is a really nice cover.
Yes.
Second highlight. Last Marvel issue of the 70s. Hoorah! We're done. We're done with the 70s. No more disco.
Not a bad opening page.
No, very nice even.
Yeah. Saber
So-
Clash, very nice title as well.
House of Tag Mining Explorer.
We get to see a very vicious looking Luke Skywalker's face on the bottom of the second page there. Yeah, that's stuff of nightmares.
So he's just transforming this place into a little bit of a winter wonderland.
They need to get back to the Alliance to warn them about this.
And here's really where I take a lot in that. Well, not here, but like the notes I took when I first read this were mostly about the duel that is in a few pages here. And that to me is the most interesting thing, is this character with the lightsaber, because I think, would he be the first person to duel Luke with a lightsaber?
Yes.
That depends on when Splinter of the Mind's Eye happens.
That is true. But I'm assuming Splinter of the Mind's Eye, most timelines have that later.
Yeah.
So it's also a good way of getting Luke to have another lightsaber when he loses his on. It hasn't happened yet, but The Empire Strikes Back, he loses his lightsaber on Cloud City. Doesn't make a new one until Shadows of the Empire, but there's some Marvel comics in between Empire Strikes Back and Shadows of the Empire where he does have a lightsaber. So everybody's asking, well, where's this other lightsaber from? And a lot of people speculate it could be from Ormond Tag.
That is interesting. That is
Well,
interesting.
also kinda
I've always
cool.
wondered that.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
It's our
I
host.
was gonna say it's also kind of cool that if you think about like Luke's training unofficially, because he doesn't get a proper teacher till Yoda, and he is kind of progressing throughout the Marvel comics. You have someone who doesn't have the Force, so it's not
It's
somebody
much easier
super
step
has
up.
to worry about. But it's a step up because he at least has a lightsaber and he knows how to use it effectively. So I think it's a good step up before Vader.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't like Silas's Tag's uniform here. Could go without that. Looks like something Leia would wear.
A little bit.
So this is interesting here. They're meeting with Ulrich, the younger brother, and Silas has a veritable family reunion, Norman. Pity our dear little sister doesn't have a role in our scheme. And Orman says, Silas, your banter is not to extend to her, ever.
Right. So it's a reference that there's another tag, Orma Tag. But I like how he salutes when he sees his brother. Like I do that when I see my brother, right?
Oh, that's Shanks.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We saw him in that earlier arc with the Yavin gas giant.
I thought that was Ulrich Tag, the Imperial officer. Is it not?
No.
Okay.
No, he has different hair.
Okay. He has blue hair.
No, that's Silas there. Ulrich is
No, I get it. I remember. It's at the beginning of the issue 31. Yep.
Yeah.
Blue hair. So then the next part, they cut to the Millennium Falcon. Luke's training with the remote, and they're talking about the junction, the transceiver communication, and they think that the House of Tag is planning something there at that specific location.
Yes.
And
well, there's this planet called Junction, which we've seen before, and with the blockade in place, the Alliance has a limited number of places where they can get supplies, and that has become the main place that they're relying on at the moment.
Right. So we see Luke in his spacesuit again. They're moving some equipment, looks like on one of those House of Tag mining ships.
We also got a bit of R2 and Chewbacca playing Dejarik here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like how it's a square Dejarik table.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a nice panel, even if the Millennium Falcon isn't quite right.
The
Stretched out a little.
Off.
Yeah.
Unless he's way above. But even still.
Yeah. So you see Luke go out in a spacesuit, yellow spacesuit that we've seen before, and he's stunned by a couple of stormtroopers, space troopers, I guess you'd call them.
Yes.
But he says, Han, Chewie, I'm caught. The Empire is going to use the thing we saw in Tatooine.
This is actually something I quite like. It is an old-fashioned operation, sometimes still necessary when one ship cannot fit in another's docking bay.
Right, that they transport the cargo containers one by one.
Yes.
That's interesting.
So Luke tries to join the team that's transporting the cargo, make them think he's one of them. It doesn't work. He gets caught and thankfully only stunned.
Mm-hmm. He says, "Oh no, kid!" But they find out he's only stunned, and then Han takes it upon himself to give that information that Luke transmitted back to the rebellion. But it's not the whole, or it's not the right information, as we'll find out later. So
he's not too happy.
Yeah, Han goes back. We see General Dodonna. They're back on Yavin 4. So they haven't evacuated yet. Rebel team still on Yavin 4 under the blockade. We see Leia there. And then we go back to Luke, where he's facing Orman Tag there, sees his lightsaber. And then he sees that you carry the weapon of the Jedi Knight. So he sees Luke's lightsaber, and he challenges him to a duel, right?
Yes. Which to me is the notable thing about this issue and even this arc by extension is the duel with Tag.
And I thought initially it was out in space, but no, it's actually inside the ship.
I think it's because the cover. Because the cover, it's like, oh, it's the space backdrop.
Yeah, they are in front of like windows in the ship, but you can see they have a neat lightsaber duel. I like the artwork there. Luke, in some panels, looks like he has a blue lightsaber.
Baron Tag here goes, we made you think that we were going to target Junction, when actually we're going to place it across the asteroid corridor so that you all die when you go to warn everyone on Junction, and that's our evil plan.
So Luke shows off his skills. I like that Luke has a blue lightsaber here, so this is actually accurate. It's Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber blade color. Orman's looks kind of orange, kind of yellow. Not sure. I guess it's more orange in most of the panels there.
Man, I love that panel down there with Baron Tag and his lightsaber.
Yeah.
Fire. Love that.
Mm-hmm. So he gets his suit cut away there, and then they're pitched into darkness there, where they could just see Luke's lightsaber. I like that panel. And
I like this. We get the Obi-Wan panel here.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is the first time we see him as a ghost.
Well, it depends on whether you count.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
I'm assuming Splinter of the Mind's
the-
Eye. When I say first, I mean chronologically.
We see him during the wheel arc when Luke is in the coma.
That's true. That is true. Could be Don Juan Quixote. His Force Ghost. So we see the end of the lightsaber battle, and Luke slashes his, what do they call it? Eye goggles, his seeing mechanism, cyber vision.
Yes.
But he doesn't kill him. So Ormantag does get away, and he says he didn't kill me. He didn't need to. Controlled the strokes so precisely, destroyed my cyber vision without harming me. And he says he was that good. And
I like this line here. It is piloted by a boy who has learned once again how much he can do with the Force awakened in him by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and has also discovered at what point he prefers to stop.
That is nice. I do like that.
mm-hmm.
And I do find it a bit funny that here his he says, "Time for a new strategy, the final strategy I was saving to dispatch the Dark Lord himself, which is turn off the lights and hope that Vader doesn't have something built into his mask that allows him to see in the dark."
You know, this was not a great plan in retrospect.
You know, sorry, my phone's dying and I'm using my data for this, but I had to. This is some of my favorite arcs is with Tag, and while he does kind of portray a sort of Saturday morning cartoon villain, there's sort of charm to him where it's like it is a really dumb plan, but at the same time, how much does he know about the Force? Probably not a lot. He's just an average Joe. But I love the fact that he's so confident about it. He's like, my final move, I'm gonna turn off the lights. And despite how silly that is, they're just I love Baron Tag. I think he's an incredible villain, despite how silly he can be. That's all I wanted to say.
He respects Luke after that fight too. That he doesn't kill him. Lets him live.
Do you notice anything else about him on this final page?
He's got his shirt back.
Yes.
Yeah,
no shirt. Shirt.
The coloring.
He made a quick change.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want them to see my pecs. And with that, the 70s Marvel Comics are at an end. Now, to the 80s comics next time.
The only thing we have left in the 70s is the Wookiee storybook and the Imperial Transport, which we'll get to eventually.
I do want to briefly touch on this final panel here, because this is actually quite important. The tie that Luke left in, we learn here, has been intentionally sabotaged by Silas Tag. Skywalker's ship has no armament, no communications, and just enough fuel to carry him to disaster.
Mm-hmm. So this isn't technically the end of the arc. We're just stopping it here.
Yes.
But issue 34 kind of wraps up this this arc together. A neat little bow. But what do you guys think of issue 33?
Not bad. It's fun to see the first lightsaber duel that Luke participates in. Theoretically, kind of, sort of. Chronologically speaking, yes. Because I've always put that like a year or two after A New Hope, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Like this is like a couple months, but Yeah, I this arc is fun. It is a little bit standard in my opinion, but it's fun. So
yeah, it was a little bit of a roundabout way to get into a lightsaber fight between Luke and Orman Tag. I think it could have been a little bit more direct, and they wouldn't have had to end it so quickly. But it works. Like I like I like issue 31 and 33. 32 was a little bit, besides the Cantina stuff, I thought it was a little bit boring.
Robert,
Sorry,
Yes, I think
my computer was, or my phone was breaking again, so I didn't even know what you guys were. I got kicked out. But
We were just wrapping up. Robert was going to share his thoughts about the final issue.
Oh, my bad, Robert.
I think probably my favorite of the 3 issues, because we get some important stuff with Luke. We get that moment with Obi-Wan. We have him fighting what is probably his first saber-wielding opponent. We do unfortunately get him in a situation where he should probably have died, and he only didn't because he was lucky enough that the stormtroopers just happened to be using stun shots.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Luke died almost yet again. I mean, he almost got killed by Valance. And Orman Tag had him. He had his lightsaber to his throat too, but
Yes,
he wanted to take Luke out fairly in a duel. So Luke definitely did get lucky, but maybe the Force, Obi-Wan, Force Ghost looking out for him.
that's
He
what
just
it
couldn't
always is.
Yep.
He just couldn't resist the opportunity for getting some practice in.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you want to share your final thoughts if you're available? If not, we can close out. Let me know in the chat.
I'm here. Definitely
Okay.
got to end soon though, because it's freaking out. But yeah, I love the at least when it's focusing on Baron Tag and that whole shebang. I'm all in, baby. I love all of that stuff. I think it's some of the best parts. I don't think it gets topped again till Bria Sharon shows up. We
David
get to some of that
McElhinney.
stuff
Yep.
where that's actually taken a bit more seriously, but still. In these comics, I don't feel like it peaks highs until then. Again, for me, whenever Baron Tag shows up in these issues, I'm like, I'm gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a good run. So that's always something that makes me happy. So yeah, definitely a highlight for me. And it's quite ironic. One of the ones I'm more passionate about from this era of Star Wars. And my internet was dead for all of it. So, but the cookie crumbles and you deal what you've been dealt. So, thank you, guys, and Brennan who left. But thank you so much for hosting and keeping it alive and talking about these issues. As to
I do
the
also
audience,
I do also like that this last issue hinted at stuff that we're going to get later with the final Tag sibling who we haven't met yet.
Yeah, Dorma Tag. Right.
Yeah. But as for the 70s, we're pretty much done. We have, again, before this episode should have been the Wookiee storybook. But you'll notice I dubbed this episode 16. The last episode was 14 because when we finally do it and I'm able to edit it into the playlist, it will still fit before this episode. So I did that on purpose. It was not an accident.
Do a little retcon episode in the future.
A little retcon, like the Star Wars X-Men universe did sometimes. But yeah, we have the Wookiee storybook and Imperial Transport, and then we're on to the 80s when my parents were born. So it'll be a fun time.
When some of us were born as well. I don't know about I don't know about Al, but I was born in the 80s, so
98.
Okay. So we have some special guests for that particular episode. So this is the last episode we'll record for June. look out in July for the next episode, Wookiee
Yes,
Storybook, Imperial Troop Transport.
we'll definitely have stuff there,
Oh.
and it'll be a new. If I have my camera back on again, it'll be a new setting completely. So that will be maybe a nice change of view. We'll see. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate you all. Everybody who was in the panels covering for my my stupid butt, and to all you in the comments who are here watching, because you could be doing anything else with your time, and you're chilling with us. So that's much appreciated. And until next time, different franchise, but live long and prosper. All right. Bye bye.
All right.